Hey everyone, welcome to the rollout. I'm Lindsay Rousseau.
And I'm Genevieve Marie. Hello and welcome.
Yeah.
Today's episode is going to be very interesting. We are revisiting Marvel's What If with the next two episodes. And we have a special guest with us today, Morgana Ignis.
Yay.
She is an actress and a fantastic friend. She's a friend of the show as well. You might have recognized her from some of our past work. Hello and welcome, Morgana. Please introduce yourself just a little bit.
Of course. Yeah, my name is Morgana Ignis. I'm an actress who appropriately for this episode has played a lot of demons and creatures and has experimented and played a lot in the dark magical world. So it's good to be back on this episode today talking about this insane episode of Marvel's What If.
Yes, and you are also a part of the Disney family.
Yes, I puppeteered, was one of the puppeteers on Earth to Ned, puppeteering Ned from the inside. So you may not recognize me for being inside of a giant blue alien stomach within that show. So that was part of the Jim Henson Company, who I've done a lot of work with. But yeah, very proud to have been a puppeteer on Disney Plus's in-house alien-hosted talk show.
Hey. Oh my gosh. And if you haven't seen that show, guys, please, once you're done watching this, please go watch it. It's amazing. It really is. And so much congratulations for that.
Thank you so much. It's such a fun one.
So obviously we, a couple weeks ago talked about the first two episodes of What If, which we genuinely enjoyed. We had some thoughts, but overall enjoyed. And then we had the next two episodes of What If come out. I don't know, Jen. Morgana, Jen and I have been texting back and forth because I watched it on the plane yesterday coming back from PAX, and I made the mistake of having watched Titans right before it, which this season of Titans, if you're not watching, is slaying it. And then I saw Shang-Chi today, right after having watched the latest What If episode, and my brain hurt because I was very distraught with some of the choices that went into the last episode.
It has been an extremely grim, dark couple of weeks, especially following the episode right before that, which was that beautiful T'Challa as like the leader of the Guardians of the Galaxy one that just makes you fucking want to cry your eyes out at the end of it.
Yeah.
It's a very different tone. And it's kind of like a very different tone that we now have gotten two sort of heavily grim, dark episodes of. So I have a lot of feelings on that, but I'd love to hear.
Right.
I'd love to hear from your thoughts first.
Well, Genevieve, where should we
start? Okay, so my feelings are actually mixed. I am a very big Doctor Strange fan, both of the film and the comic books, and I'm a big fan, so I know what they were going for, and I have to applaud them on several points. But what I find a little bit hampering for the writers and the creators of these What If episodes is that the products that they're working with are movies, and some of these movies have come out over 10 years ago. It's odd to think about that, but they have, and we have really evolved beyond the first couple of Marvel movies, and we have gone such a long way in the MCU that when we revisit some of these films, you also have to take the good and the bad from these films. You also have to take some of the loopholes in story writing, some of the things that don't quite match up, like Stephen Strange's relationship with Christine in the original film. I found that to be a little bit jarring and a lot of emotional work for the audience to kind of jump on board the idea that somehow they're just magically in love, because they don't really they don't even end up in a relationship at the end of the film, and they don't really lay the groundwork in this episode or in the film for that. So when you're working with properties that have been made into films and they're 10 plus years old, or, you know, they're even 5 years old. We are light years ahead of that. And it can get very difficult to work with that material and to revisit what is old, especially when it can come off as derivative, cliched. It can bring up some like odd tropes. It can also just kind of feel a little bit like filler.
Well, that was kind of the feeling I got from last. I mean, obviously we have 2 episodes to talk about, but specifically the Doctor Strange one is that, you know, with the first 2, with the Captain Carter and with the T'Challa ones, it's like, oh, okay, these one with Captain Carter, I was like, this is the story I wanted to get from Agent Carter that we never got. And then with T'Challa, we're just like, yes, please, more T'Challa, more Chadwick Boseman, you know, please. And then with this one, I'm like, we love this character, but I don't see what purpose this serves. I mean, okay, yes, we're showing that choices can lead to the destruction of the entire universe, but we did that in, like you just said, Genevieve, we've come light years away. We've now had WandaVision, we've had Black Widow, we've now had Shang-Chi. We've seen that Marvel now understands that diversity is important in the MCU, which they didn't really get early on in the MCU. And the fact that we have an entire episode where, once again, Christine's sole purpose is a plot device. She has like 5 lines, and her sole purpose is to be a plot device for Stephen Strange. And as much as I love Benedict Cumberbatch, and I am a massive Benedict Cumberbatch fan, him by himself, just listening to her over and over and over again say the same 3 lines, just, it was not compelling to me. And I was just, everything that it reminded me about the film of how poorly I felt Rachel McAdams' character was treated in the film just came to light again here, because they had a chance to take a different route and they didn't.
Yeah, that was a bit, well, one of the things that they definitely have on their shoulders that they're carrying is the fact that they are not making a Doctor Strange What If. They are doing a specifically MCU Benedict Cumberbatch Doctor Strange What If. That is a What If spinoff of that universe, which comes with a lot of sort of issues, including the fact that we don't see Christine in any of Doctor Strange's appearance after the fact. When he becomes Sorcerer Supreme, he's kind of just off doing his own thing. He's left his sort of non-sorcerer life behind, and is like, he's just all about keeping the balance and all of that. So the issue I'm having with this one is kind of a similar issue that I had about the last episode, the what if, you know,
they killed all the Avengers,
is the fact that we are establishing so many different new things in this universe besides just the main points. We have to accept in the very beginning that if you're kind of a bigger fan of the films, it becomes even more confusing because we remember the relationship with Christine. We're very aware of the fact that they don't like continue dating, that she's not in the Sanctum Sanctorum, like hanging out with them in like Endgame or Infinity War or anything like that. And she's not in the trailer for the new Spider-Man that he's featured in. So she's kind of a non-character at this point. I had a similar issue with the Avengers one because they kind of dropped that whole, like, you know, it's all about hope thing. You're supposed to like know what's going on. It's like, oh, I guess in this universe, Hope Van Dyne did not become the Wasp the way she did in the films, and was actually much earlier and was an original Avenger and like all this other stuff. But it's kind of this strange thing where they almost like wink at the camera. It's like, get it? Hope. And we're just like, is Hope relevant? Like, where's it? Like in this MCU thing, like Hope comes way later after the Avengers. So they're really asking the audience to kind of put together a lot of other things that are different in this universe instead of just this one point. It's not just one point that's different. It's a bunch of things that are different. And that's very much the case here as well. I will say, as far as like positive aspects I liked about the episode, the show continues to be absolutely beautifully animated.
Oh, it's no doubt there. Yeah, the environments, beautiful.
Incredible. It reminds me of some of my like Genevieve was saying, some of my favorite of the Doctor Strange comics that really go into the dark occultism of that whole world.
Right.
His whole transformation and like his darker self, him ingesting and absorbing all of the demons one by one as they come in, all of that was awesome and does kind of work towards Doctor Strange as a character as a whole, like not specifically Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange, but he has done a lot of things in the comics that were very selfish and stupid purely out of the fact that his main weakness is arrogance, like egotistical arrogance. It's just weird that it happened with this Christine thing, because it doesn't, it
seems like if they departed, like if they didn't, Christine really doesn't matter in this particular, and I know that's odd to say.
It's like it's all about her, but
she is the plot device. But Christine could have been anything. Christine could have been like his favorite trike when he was growing up, or a broom, or she wasn't really a person in this. It could have been like X, Y, or Z. Really, when the story gets into like the cosmic horror aspect, that's when I feel like it actually starts to pick up and gets interesting and gets going. The whole Christine thing for me, it's really annoying because it's the problematic trope of, fridging the girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like cranked up to an 11. It's very strange. And as audience members, I feel like we've seen fridging and we've seen it done so many times.
So many.
And and at this point I'm like, I should be numb to this, but having the repetitive like scenes of having to see her die so many times, and then one time there's just like this random act of gun violence where I actually, on the second viewing, I laughed at it because it just was so left field, and it was pretty funny. Like it was just so awkwardly funny because it's like, nope.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna sit through this and you're gonna watch all the weird new ways she's gonna die.
It honestly could have been simplified by literally just being what if Doctor Strange went mad with power?
Right.
It
didn't. Exactly. Because all they needed was the catalyst to get him into this whole power accumulation, changing fixed points in time mentality. I mean, Doctor Who has done it dozens of times in the past 60 years. So I'm like, they've already, I mean, if you want to talk about a show that's already has tackled the issues of trying to change fixed points in time, then what happens with it, and does it without having to do a tired trope over and over again, please go watch one of the 60 years worth of Doctor Who that's out there. Because there's other ways that could have gotten us to that point. Yeah,
I could see needing to come up with another excuse if it's, say, Spider-Man becoming evil, because he doesn't have a lot of other catalysts that would like take him to that point, other than like the person he loves being taken away from him and go like being grief stricken. But Doctor Strange literally could have gone down that route by literally just being told no. Literally just the Ancient One literally saying, no, you can't read that book. And he's like, why are you keeping power from me? Why are you keeping knowledge from me? Why are you telling me what to do? And then just going his own route, like other characters in the Doctor Strange books went, where they're like, no, you're limiting my power.
Right.
Why, it's like, why should I listen to you when I'm already proving myself above you? Especially after, like, when we establish that happens after he defeats Dormammu. Like, that could have been a perfect point of just like, I've defeated Dormammu, now I want more power. It's like, where do I go from here? It didn't have to be like the whole love story and killing Christine a million times, because we already have a character who is obsessed with being the best and constantly upping himself.
Yeah.
It was just, I find it funny. Like it almost feels like the writers had something against Christine.
I kind of feel like they have a thing again, just like it's the whole Sharon Carter problem too. Like, I feel like the writers just don't know what to do with Christine. They don't know what to do with Sharon Carter. And so they just like,
I mean, and they even got Amy Adams to come back. Rachel McAdams, Rachel McAdams to come back to, do the voice acting, and that must have cost a pretty penny. But for what purpose?
To give her the same 3 lines, just
make her want to like get creme brulee.
That's
Just like,
a quick
like,
payback.
this woman has won awards for her acting. Let her do her thing. And it's not nothing against Benedict. Like, Benedict, you are one of the most brilliant actors of our day. Like, I have loved everything you've ever been in, but you by yourself in this just didn't, like, I felt like it would have benefited by having some other performances around you to prop you up, because animation is a very different medium. You don't have the nuanced facial expressions that he's so well known for. And like, the physicality is like, it's a lot different. And I think that they hamstrung themselves by making it so much about him. And yes, the episode's about him, but they could have still done that with other characters as well in surrounding him.
Yeah, I agree. It just seems like the guy in the library, loved that character. Like, he's on screen for
great.
like 2 seconds,
and then they killed him.
and then he dies. I mean, I actually thought that was very interesting, like a very interesting relationship. And I mean, like, what was that guy doing this whole entire time? I mean, it's like decades that doesn't he like poke his head in to be like, hey, you all right in there?
Right.
Like,
just
that would
imagine
be
like
an interesting relationship to explore.
You're just hearing loud noises coming.
Just like
with how fast Stranger's going through demons. I just imagine that guy just eating breakfast, walking down the hall, and he's like, oh yeah, Steve's still at it.
His corn pops.
Still devouring demons. Okay, I'll go about my business.
That was one thing that I really did like about this episode in particular. Once you get past like the repetitive Christine dying thing, then it really does kind of like, it dips its toes into that cosmic horror genre. Mm-hmm. And you do get more of what I think we're going to see in the multiverse of madness. And I like the idea that he spends decades in a single room as he amasses power and consumes demons. And then he actually turns into like this Cthulhian nightmare creature in the process. I absolutely love that. And also, it really does touch on a lot of the things that we see in the Doctor Strange comic books, with the tension caused by Stephen manipulating reality in order to, either serve his own purposes and then having to manipulate reality again in order to, save the world from what he's done or what other people have done. It's nice. It's on par with the comics.
We're literally about to see that in the next Spider-Man film. Like, the trailer set that completely of Wong being like, Steven, no, and Steven being like, Steven, yes, I'm going to do it anyway. So
it's like Loki fucking things up wasn't enough. We now got to double down on that. And
well, I love that. I love all the jokes leading up to the trailer of like Doctor Strange just being like furiously pissed at Wanda and Loki for just messing everything up. And then in this trailer, he's just like in his pajamas and his track pants, his mug, is just like, I'm gonna fuck shit up worse. I'm like, it's not about him being like, I can't believe you guys did it. It's just like, I'm gonna one up you and just completely shatter reality at probably the same point you guys are.
For lesser reasons than the apparent love of his life dying and not being able to come back. So he's obviously willing to take those chances when the stakes aren't as high.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was saying earlier about it's like we already have the reasoning behind it, and that is that his weakness is he's a show-off. He's an arrogant show-off. So that could have been all the reason, and it could have been like a very nice tie-in to what we're about to see in the new Spider-Man film and whatever we're seeing in Multiverse of Madness, because the whole trailer was just like Steven being told that he can't do something, that he shouldn't do something, and him being like, I'm gonna do it even harder because no one tells me what to do.
Which could have been interesting. That would have really been interesting to open that dynamic up and then make the Ancient One a much larger role. And like, it could have been about, their conflict of, him trying to do things and her shutting them down. And I feel like that could have been something really interesting to watch as he's trying to gain more and more power. And she literally comes back from the afterlife to try and, curtail it and shut it down. They could have gone a much more interesting route to get us to the sane end game. No pun intended.
Yeah, think of all the time if we would have cut out all the stuff with Christine that we could have spent
Yeah.
on that. You
Yeah.
know, like what if Doctor Strange basically went the route that Mordo does at the end of the film, where he
Yes.
goes his own route and becomes like the anti-Sorcerer Supreme? That would have been very cool to see. Kind of what we were talking about earlier about how the sort of world and animation we see in the library was just a very exciting thing to see in the realm
Yeah.
of
I
cosmic
loved the
horror.
library.
It made me think of how cool it would be. Kind of remembering, did you remember the Spawn series, the Spawn animated series that came out
yeah.
years ago? Like the unbelievably dark, gory insanity of that series. And watching that stuff with Doctor Strange in this, I'm just like, Doctor Strange as just a character, unconnected to the What If or Benedict or anything like that, would be a really cool, dark, mature animated series if it was done.
Yeah.
If we spent more time focusing on the occult and the horror aspects of Doctor Strange, there are so many directions to go in with that it would be an amazing, cool thing to see.
I mean, and obviously Netflix is already doing that with Castlevania and with the Witcher animated series. So it's like, Disney, you got Hulu. Like, I know you're looking at doing more animated shows for Hulu, because that's the thing you're doing. It's like, maybe we take this rate, you're already looking at Deadpool potentially going to Hulu. So like, maybe we take this darker Doctor Strange. It's not appropriate for Disney Plus, but send it over to Hulu.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was, like I said, a lot of the complaints about this episode were similar complaints I had about the episode before that, where a lot of fun concepts, but just a few canonical wrenches thrown in the gears that make the What If thing be like, it's not just one change. The whole idea is like, the watcher opens it up. It's just like, what if everything was the same except for one little thing changed? And that's not the case. A lot of things have changed.
A lot of things changed.
Work.
Yeah.
A lot of things. The Avengers like being killed off episode just really, because you can really just thwart the whole thing quite easily. Like, because I feel like they felt that they wrote in like a whole like, oh, gotcha, like Loki's going to, have this whole like world supremacy moment, where it's like, I don't think Nick Fury's that dumb. Like, the first thing that Loki does when he comes to Earth, he's a big alien god with an entire army, is threaten to like mow down all of Earth and take it over. Why would Nick Fury then believe him and be like, oh, this guy's gonna help me out, and there is no reason to doubt him? Captain Marvel, why didn't you call in on your friend Captain Marvel?
Which again, I'm not gonna do any spoilers for Shang-Chi, but they actually do kind of in the post-credit screen touch on the humor of the fact that Captain Marvel, again, Earth's mightiest Avenger, is so poorly underutilized. Like, yes, let's just call in the woman who could fix things now.
Well, that's
you didn't have her pager number.
Especially in the case of like Hank Pym being a pretty underpowered villain in general. That like, it's like he literally, like, I think kills Black Widow in a fist fight.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you would have called Captain Marvel and had her come down to deal with it, it would have been
done.
So simple. Yeah, exactly. So simple. And I feel like that's a lot of what goes on in these What If episodes, is that even with like just a bit of scrutiny, they fall apart quite easily. Yeah. And that's what I'm getting a bit frustrated with personally when I watch them, is that like you squint a little too hard and you're like, but I'm supposed to be having fun. But my other, like, the one side of my brain is like, I want to have fun and just like disconnect and watch these things. And the other part of my brain is like, but no.
Well, I'm like, are they trying? That's what I've been trying, like what you just said, Genevieve, like I'm trying to figure out what the purpose of these shows is. Because are we trying to like play the nostalgia factor of like, hey guys, remember the past 10 years of the MCU? Remember how much you love that? And those guys aren't here anymore. We're going to remind you. But that doesn't work, because it's like, well, we did like a lot of the past MCU, but we had a lot of issues. Representation being like number one. and you've done so much better. And it's like, okay, we want to explore the multiverse. Okay, great. Well, we just had WandaVision and Loki, and those were so well done. We didn't need this to explain the multiverse more before we get Spider-Man and Into the Multiverse. So I really don't understand what their purpose was behind these episodes. Yeah. And
well, I have to say, I am a big fan of the What If comics that they're based off of. It's been a long history of the What If comics in the Marvel universe. Which has been fun one-shots, just single one-shots. It's kind of like, Marvel recently also did like Marvel The End, which is just like the the non-canonical death of each character, like how they finally pass on. And a lot of those are really fun. One of my favorite What If comics came out a couple years ago, which was the What If Magic, which is like, what if magic became like the Sorcerer Supreme, and instead of like being raised in limbo, she was basically like taken in and raised by Doctor Strange. And it's a really fun one shot that just really expands on her character, and is this really fascinating thing of like, okay, what if this one little thing changed? Instead of her being taken into Xavier's, she's taken into the Sanctum and raised to be like a really great sorcerer. And it turned into like one of the best Magic and Doctor Strange stories. And that actually continued. They like actually continued that story in Doctor Strange as The End. I think the first two episodes really nailed it as far as the general concept of what if one little thing was different.
Yeah.
I loved the Guardians one just because like it shows like what an absolute loser Peter Quill is. Like what if Peter Quill is taken out of the equation as just this random sort of loser who just listens to music all day and is replaced with somebody who is just born to be a leader and a king in the world. Everything connected to that was a direct result of T'Challa being the one who's abducted instead. Everything with Thanos, everything we see as far as Gamora, Nebula looking completely different, like her having her hair, her not being all chopped up and stuff. It's like, oh yeah, because Thanos never went that route in making his daughters fight and becoming evil and everything. It's like everything about that episode was fascinating because it's like, oh, this is what would have happened if T'Challa was just going around the universe being this leader,
being competent.
Being competent. And the way they got the ball rolling on the Peggy Carter episode, the Captain Carter episode, that was one thing that changed everything. One thing that completely just set everything in motion. So it would have been nice if they would have continued with that instead of writing an entirely different story with all these different universal rules and different relationships with people. That's
give us a chance, or maybe if it had, like you said, like with magic, like if it had given us a chance to see untold stories as opposed to taking big established characters and just doubling down on them. Like, okay, if it's Doctor Strange and one thing changes, well, let's see how that impacts everybody else. Because as he's changing everything going on in time, we could have seen that through the lenses of other people. We could have seen it through Wong. Like maybe we're watching him and his struggle of having to like try and figure out how to stop Doctor Strange from, these very poor life choices that he is making. I think it's not the concept of what if, like you said, Morgana, like they've told some amazing stories with it. It's why did they pick, like with these past two episodes specifically, why were these the stories that they chose to tell when Genevieve, like you said, you scratch just a little bit and they kind of don't hold up.
Yeah, the what if stories are usually a very good way of exploring a character outside of the canon storylines that are currently being told. I think like one of the earliest what if comics, I think, was what if Spider-Man joined the Fantastic Four? And that is just, that was a lot of fun to explore that because they got to write the character in the sense of, okay, instead of being like a lone neighborhood Spider-Man who fights on his own and goes to high school, what if we put him in a team dynamic? and had him work with all these other competent heroes and becomes like a team member with the Fantastic Four. And that gave us an opportunity in that comic to explore things about Peter Parker that we otherwise wouldn't have an opportunity to unless we literally wrote that into the canon. That's some big thing that's going to go across the normal comic books is going for. Like there's some story arc that goes there. This is an opportunity to just explore this character. And in this episode, that could have been explored so much by making it more about what we already know Stephen's weaknesses are. Because that could have been reflected in, you know, if Stephen were not the person that was going to really take the reins and become that positive force to take over for the Ancient One, who would be? Would it be Wong? Could it be like the sort of thing where it's like Wong ends up becoming like the Sorcerer Supreme and his nemesis instead of Dormammu is Stephen Strange having gone mad? Like there's a lot of cool places you could have gone with that without foraging Rachel McAdams
over and over again,
over and over. Yeah,
it was so uncomfortable. Like honestly, that it was to the point where I'm like, I'm usually numb to the fridging, but this is getting very uncomfortable. But then the second watch, I was like, it's actually kind of funny in a way, like in a horrible way. It's funny because I mean, the dog from John Wick has more character development than Christine does in this particular episode. But you're right, Morgana. That would have been far, far better. And I think you touched on something very interesting. And I think you actually probably solved the issue of these last two what ifs for me personally, because what I liked about the Captain Carter episode was that Peggy and Steve were very much still themselves. They were the Peggy and the Steve that we know from the MCU. They were just put into different extraordinary circumstances, and they had to deal with, you know, the different roles that they have been put into. And I really, really liked that. So what you're actually watching is Peggy and Steve, the ones that we know from the MCU, whereas in these other what ifs, especially the Doctor Strange one, the Doctor Strange that we get isn't actually the one that we know from the MCU. The one that we know from the MCU is this arrogant, like, dude who thinks that he can, and he's also like, they didn't touch on the fact that he's also this like celebrity doctor, and then that makes him an asshole. And, you know, he refuses to help people that he knows he like doesn't have a good chance of saving. And he is an absolute jerk to Christine. He even tells her, like, we're barely even friends, like we're not really even friends. We were barely lovers. And so when you're getting into this next episode, you look at Steven and you're like, that's not the MCU Steven. This is a completely different Steven. Like, this dude like seems to have it pretty much together. Like, he is you know, he's already in love with Christine, which he doesn't have that relationship with her at all in the MCU. And so what you're kind of faced with is something that is not the Steven that we get in the MCU, whereas in the first couple of episodes, like especially, you know, T'Challa and Steve and Peggy are the same, essentially. Yeah. They just have the one like little quirk to them. And I feel like Steven could have easily gone the route that you were saying, Morgana, just having that one little to push him over the edge. And, you know, especially it depends on when that happens in the Stephen Strange, you know, universe timeline, also, like before or after Dormammu. But yeah, I think you really just like nailed that right on the head. Like, I think that's why I don't like it, because this Stephen isn't the Stephen that we know. I had to do a lot of emotional work and a lot of filling in the blanks right in the first 5 minutes of this episode to understand which Stephen we're dealing with.
And well, I the hard things immediately with just what the topic is called, which is what if instead of Stephen Strange losing his hands, he lost his heart. But that doesn't immediately send up red flags where it's like, oh no, he doesn't lose Christine, because she's not relevant in any of the films.
I never
I didn't know. Yeah, I never understood the concept, because I was like, well, he, like you just said, Genevieve, like he's kind of a dick. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, unless he loses his love of himself and stops being a narcissist, that could have been interesting to see, maybe.
What if Doctor Strange never developed humility? What if Doctor Strange never humbled himself? Like, those are the things that could have taken the story. Right. I could have seen, like, what if Iron Man lost his heart? Yeah. And it was something that happened that Pepper was like taken out of the equation because his relationship with her is so integral and important at this point in it, to see like what would happen if Pepper died in front of him. Or
and as you're saying it, like I'm feeling like, no, you
I
can't.
know, right? You're like, we get that visceral reaction because
but when somebody's like, yeah, Christine dies, it's just like,
and I'm wondering how many people out there actually had to be like, who is that Christine again? Because she is.
I forgot her name. Like,
oh no, I same too. I was like, oh, that's what her name was in the original movie. The only time we've actually referenced her, and she again was not a huge part of the plot.
Yeah, because it's very clear when we go through like Infinity War and Endgame that she's not brought up, that they're not still together. They're not dating. Yeah. Like that's not a thing that's happening.
Was she poofed? We don't know.
Yeah, there's never a point in which Doctor Strange, no matter how much we saw him in this, is thinking about needing to get back to Christine. Yeah. You know, like I said, if it were Iron Man, if it were Tony Stark, and like the what if literally opened up of just like, what if Tony Stark lost his heart? Then we would all immediately be impacted by that and be
absolutely
completely understand him going insane and doing like, you know, him becoming Ultron or something like that.
Right.
You know, that would be something that we would expect.
Or even if Peter Parker lost MJ, I'm like, even in this iteration of Peter, like Tom Holland's Peter Parker, they're still earlier in their relationship than like some of the other, you know, Peter Parkers that we've had. But still, like if we said, ooh, if MJ died right early, like we'd be like, oh shit, okay, what's that gonna lead to?
Yeah, and we've had that happen with Spider-Man before. We've had alternate universes in which he goes crazy from losing either MJ or Gwen Stacy or something like that. So to do this story in which a character makes a turn for evil because they lost the love of their life, Doctor Strange was just not the one.
Not the one. No, because honestly, at the end of his first movie, I kind of just figured like he does sort of take like the place of, you know, he is sort of like Earth's watcher. You know, he does sort of take that place where he's got to operate outside of just regular everyday life. I don't really see him like, you know, putting on a suit and walking around, you know, walking down the street or something to get like an in and out. Like he'll probably like call for it, you know. He's the type of dude to call out for that crap. Yeah. He's not going to go out. He's got the world to watch and the universe to keep balanced. I kind of figured that, you know, and especially from the comics, that sort of lifestyle is beneath him. Yeah. Or that's kind of how he feels in the comics and how he acts. Like, oh, like Clea, get lost. Like I have world universe shit to watch.
Yeah, and even then, when he has some sort of relationship in the comics, it's always very connected to work.
Yes,
you know, it has to be another sorcerer who's very connected to that world that knows already. I think like right now he's dating Captain Marvel. Like in the comics, Captain Marvel is like actually training cosmic magic underneath him, and there's like a relationship there, but he's not going out for dates. He's not going and taking Christine as the Sorcerer Supreme.
No, there's no Netflix and chill for Doctor Strange.
No, he has no time. And marry his apprentices. That always happens.
Yeah, that happens as well because again, scumbag doctor.
Right?
dating his interns.
But yeah, no, I never once thought that dude was just going to have like a chill dating scene or, you know, have like game night on Sunday. No. Like, it's just not what I expected. So yeah, I much prefer your version of this last episode, Morgana.
I'm gonna rewrite it.
Rewrite.
I might have some connections over there.
There we go. So we're gonna do a redo on that one, and Yeah. And, and I think that some of the issues that we had with that one were also some of the ones with the previous episode, and that, I mean, Genevieve, you had brought up, Michael, to have these characters not acting in ways like that
are true to
that
themselves.
are true to themselves, and
or
to the
rather what the
universe.
audience knows them as, because
Right.
that's also a huge roadblock that they seem to be stumbling over, is that we, the audience, know these characters specifically as having certain traits. Doctor Strange, he is arrogant. He then later learns how to, have humility. And we didn't really see that showcased that much in this last one. And then it's just very strange to see characters like that, popping up. They have the same look and the same voice, but different character traits that are being highlighted, and then others that we know them to have that are just non-existent anymore. It's weird, and it causes us to do a lot of like mental gymnastics to get on board with what's going on.
Yeah, that, like I said, my biggest problem with the series so far was that wink at the camera in the previous episode, which is like, it's all about hope. And it's not a big revelation for anybody there, because it's confusing to imagine that, in this universe, Hope Van Dyne was way before the Avengers and died on a mission and worked for S.H.I.E.L.D. and all this stuff, where maybe we could have gotten a hint or something like that early in the episode, that Hope was an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., that maybe like a throwaway line of Nick Fury talking about
kind of just
being on a mission with her.
Or wanting to assemble the Avengers, because it's just like, we need more wasps.
You gotta put in.
We need more heroes like the Wasp was.
Right.
And
you gotta write in the
know.
Chekhov's Wasp. You can't just drop that crap on us at the very end.
Right. Well, and then to see Hank just lose his shit like that, I also, so here I'm like, okay, let's one, out of character, but two, let's flip the script here a little bit. If a woman lost her shit every time her husband died in war, I swear to God, we would have never ending, like,
Hank.
We'd have unending Hanks, but like, you don't see
pins.
that. What? Because I also feel like it kind of does a disservice to her character, because it's like, if she was this badass agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., brilliant scientist, putting her life on the line all the time, like the fact that this is Hank's response when she dies doing what was a high risk job, I really feel like undersells the female warrior character as a role model. Because again, if it was switched, they'd probably show the wife crying for a little bit and then she'd move on with her life. She wouldn't take out an entire team of strangers that they don't know, because and so for me, that was kind of my issue as well, is like, I felt like it devalued the importance of Hope being the amazing, amazing woman that she was.
Well, you bringing that up also kind of makes me realize that both these episodes were kind of, what if one of the heroes goes insane and evil because we killed off one of the female characters in some horrible way? Like,
right.
In Hope's case, it was literally off screen.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, she dies
on a mission.
We make up for it in we make up for it in oodles in the next one, though. You get to watch Christine die like 5 times.
Yeah, so two episodes in which we get like a disheveled male superhero who can't keep their fucking emotions together, who went insane and
like, what happened to Hank Pym? Why is he just like ravenous, like foaming at the mouth lunatic? It's like, I honestly, like, I don't think that he would. Why did that have to happen? That was weird, because so like, Hank Pym does not have to him. Like, he doesn't have to turn into that in order to do horrible things. People do horrible things without, quote unquote, going crazy. It's like, the dude could have just wanted revenge. It would have made more sense for him to be more like with his faculties, actually, because it would make him more clear-headed and diabolical, and
Right.
you know, kind of piecing everything together. It's almost insulting. I felt it was weird.
If I can give another alternate take of like another way that
Yes.
that episode could have been done instead of killing Hope off screen, we've already established that Hank Pym's research and stuff has been stolen by S.H.I.E.L.D. before. Like that was a thing that was established. The fact that S.H.I.E.L.D., without Hank's permission, stole the idea for like, you know, the Pym particles and everything from him for funding and everything. It could have been very well tied to that, of Hank being furious because basically they're founding the Avengers and founding this initiative and everything after stealing all of his research. You know,
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah. Again, it's something that is in character for Hank Pym, of just like, what if this character was just pushed a little too far in the sense of what we saw in the movies of just like him getting revenge on S.H.I.E.L.D. and being like, you're not going to found, you know, you're not going to found your superhero team. You're not going to put this like nanotech that you developed into Tony Stark and do all of this based on the stolen research that you took from me.
But also adding another layer to that, at the time that he's going around killing all these Avengers, S.H.I.E.L.D. is still run by Hydra. So maybe Hank Pym figured that one out as well. Like, you don't know, like he could be playing 4D chess and, you know, doing several things at once. Like, you're not going to have like my Pym particles to, you know, fund your evil government.
Right. Or you give us more female characters, because again, my other overarching problem with the fact that What If is rehashing old stories and we have next to no women in any of these episodes. What if like Hank and Hope are working together to take down S.H.I.E.L.D. for having stolen their research? Then we could get, you know, Michael Douglas and Michelle Pfeiffer together headlining an episode. I mean, maybe she wasn't available. I'm just saying, like, we were stuck with Black Widow trying to be the one woman in the episode. We're stuck with Christine being the one, not even woman in that episode.
Single tent pole.
It's like
there are other ways of exploring these stories that would keep in character, that keeps in character, that just slightly tweaks the story instead of it in both these cases being about these two heroes being grief-stricken over the like different canonical death of one of the female characters.
Right.
On the plus side, the next one is just very simple in the sense of what if zombies?
Yeah, because you know what? You can never tell a bad zombie story, apparently.
Yeah, I really think that's like what a lot of the What If series is just leading up to. It's just like everyone wants a Marvel Zombies thing. Let's give them a Marvel
Let's do it.
Thing. So, you know, I know we're going to get that. I know that we're probably going to get Gamora, because we didn't see that version of Gamora that they've been teasing of, like, what if Gamora did follow in Thanos' footsteps and actually did become like, you know, his apprentice. So I know we're going to get that. So that's good. But yeah, it's the What If stories really should be about tweaking one minor little thing in this universe and further exploring the characters instead of throwing a random death into there to make them go crazy when they already have all these other reasons we've established in the MCU for them to act out in this way and to take this turn.
Right. It's the butterfly effect. You only need to kill one butterfly. You don't need to stomp on 1,000 and change like a whole bunch of the narrative.
Well, I think that's what makes so many of the Marvel characters interesting, is that a lot of their stories are based around the idea that they so easily could have gone evil. They so easily could use their powers for bad. Like Tony Stark could have very well like come out of that whole situation and decided to become a even bigger, even more powerful warlord. You know, the Hulk could have become a monster and could have gone on continuous rampages and just become an unstoppable evil force.
Right.
And the same case with Doctor Strange, could have used his power, like his mystical powers, for evil and gathering power like we saw in this episode. Hank Pym could have become that Hank Pym that we saw at the end out of jealousy and rage. There's a lot of other places we can explore with these characters that, you know, what, you know, it's like, yeah, what if the turn that they made went in the other direction?
Yeah. I love that. Well, I think on that note, I feel like we have come to the natural conclusion.
I know. I do too.
Unless anyone else has any last nuggets of thoughts to add or anything.
I'm looking forward to the zombie episode.
You know what? I enjoy a good zombie flick sometimes.
I feel like you're not gonna be fridging anybody in a zombie episode.
Everyone's fridged.
Everybody gets fridged. Everybody equally across the board gets fridged.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Morgana, thank you so much for being on the show with us again. It's always so much fun to have you here.
It's always a pleasure. I enjoyed being able to give you my what ifs.
Yes.
What if these episodes are written by Morgana Ignis?
Yes.
Where can we find you on social media?
You can find me in the sort of thematically named social media accounts, Ignis Twote on Twitter, Ignisgram on Instagram, and I have some sort of TikTok that I need to work more on, but I'm there as well.
That sounds about like my TikTok.
I know, right? I think I've posted twice, maybe.
I think I have like 4. It doesn't matter. No,
we need to get on top of that, clearly.
So thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you so much, Morgana, for joining us again. It is absolutely always a pleasure. And your Marvel knowledge just astounds me. So thank you. If you guys liked what you saw here, please give us a like, give us a subscribe, ring that bell. We're trying to grow the channel, so any love you can give us would be great. If you could give us a little bit more of your time and go over and watch a little bit of the next video, we would also very much appreciate that. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm sure we will be back with our next take on the Marvel What Ifs. I hope you liked this one, and we will see you next time. We upload every Friday at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, guys.